Hey there, viewers. Today's courtroom was tense from the start, but everything changed when a student from Oprah's school took the stand. Her testimony was so powerful that Oprah herself collapsed right there in front of everyone. The silence that followed was unlike anything the court had ever seen. Let's get into it. Chapter 1. The student wasn't on the list. They say routine is the courthouse's real security system. Not the armed deputies, not the cameras. Routine. It's what keeps the chaos out. Every day, I sit at my corner desk with my hot paper cup of peppermint tea, scan the docket and update the manifest on the gray paneling terminal we've been using since before the smartphones took over the world. Witnesses get logged, color-coded, tagged for processing. Every case has its tree of motion in limine, motion to seal, motion to suppress. And every witness has a number, a handler, and a paper trail. Which is why when the name Student 237 showed up in the system this morning, no first name, no counsel listed, no handler, no phone contact, I nearly dropped my tea. At first I assumed it was a formatting glitch. Happens when documents are OCR scanned from foreign systems, especially international cases. The Oprah case had that kind of gravity. South African school, American funders, 2 decades of sealed files. I tried to override the entry to reclassify the witness as awaiting confirmation. The field was locked, not restricted. Locked, gray font, not editable, even by supervisor credentials. Still, I flagged it, added a yellow tag. We use yellow when something's not urgent enough for red, but dangerous if you ignore it. Like a bee in your coffee cup. 10 minutes later, a courier arrived. No uniform, no badge, just a man with mirrored glasses and a sealed envelope. He handed it to me with a polite nod and walked out before I could even ask for ID. The envelope contained only a thin slip of paper. Student 237 has been federally cleared for testimony. Do not reschedule. Do not request additional metadata. Witness has court override status under session authority. Tier 10, level. It was printed on heavy, textured stock with the faint watermark of the Department of Justice. It felt like holding a wedding invitation from a ghost. The schedule was tight. Oprah was set to arrive through the south entrance. Media had been blocked, and the usual gallery was sealed off. I told myself maybe this was a late-arriving protected witness, maybe someone they'd kept hidden from the press, maybe even someone brought in as a decoy. But the silence around her name, it rang in my skull. The student arrived at exactly 9:04 IE. No escort, no driver. She stepped through the West Wing metal detector alone, head bowed slightly, feet bare except for thread-worn black flats. Her uniform was from Oprah's school, that soft lavender blouse with the academy insignia stitched near the shoulder seam. Over it, she wore a gray cardigan missing 3 buttons. In her left hand, a flat folder, ivory white, with the school's crest etched faintly in gold. No coat, no bag, no identification. I asked her name. She didn't answer. Instead, she extended the folder. Her right hand shook slightly. Not fear, not trauma. Something else. Like a tremor had started somewhere older than her body. The label on her uniform was cracked, like an old library checkout card. It read, Student 237. I scanned the badge with our internal intake reader. It didn't register. No beep, no denial, just nothing. As if the scanner refused to acknowledge her presence. Are you with counsel? I asked. Nothing. Have you been briefed by the victim advocacy unit? No answer. Just a long stare. Her eyes weren't blank. They were searching, like she was waiting for me to say something she already remembered. I turned to my terminal. Her name was now highlighted, not yellow, black, and next to it, already present. I double-checked the surveillance panel. The hallway cameras showed the metal detectors. Empty. Nothing recorded her entering. The The log showed a timestamp at 8:53, i.e. a 9-minute discrepancy, but no image, just a static frame, as if the building refused to remember her. "Sit here," I told her, gesturing to a chair. She didn't move, just tilted her head once, sharply, as if to say she wouldn't be here long. I buzzed security, tried to get her assigned to a marshal escort. The line disconnected 3 times before I finally got through. The sergeant on duty said, "We've already cleared all Tier 10s. She's your problem now." I opened the folder she'd handed me. Inside, a single page, handwritten, slanted script, no signature, no date, just the sentence. She was not the witness, she was the sketch. I felt something warm behind my ears, a pressure, like the room had gotten smaller by a few inches. I slid the paper back in and sealed the folder. The student sat silently, hands folded, not looking at anyone or anything, but everyone walking past her paused, just slightly, like their brains had hit a speed bump. Some squinted, some shivered. At 9:31 a.m., the system glitched. My inbox received 17 auto-forwarded emails from dates that hadn't happened yet. July 4th, 2025, August 19th, a message labeled, "Filing Confirmation, Session 10 was dated December 9th, 2024, 6 months ago." It included an attachment with my signature authorizing her testimony. I had never signed it. I opened our internal print log. There it was. Job ID 3827. User ME. Document. Witness approval. Student 2037. Time 2:03 a.m. this morning. But I had been asleep. I checked the access log. My ID card had been used at the print terminal. Confirmed. Door log said I entered at 1:58 a.m. I hadn't. My hands began to tremble. I messaged my federal contact, not someone listed in the main courthouse directory. She goes by Ren, though I doubt that's her real name. "We only speak during Tier 10 hearings." She replied instantly. I typed, "Witness 237 arrived. No entry logs. Not on original list. My ID linked to retroactive filing." Her reply came as 3 words. "Let her testify." Then a second message. "Do not interfere." Then a final one. "Playback begins." I looked up. The student was no longer sitting. She was already standing outside courtroom C, her hands folded in front of her, the folder still sealed. Her eyes were closed. The courtroom doors opened, not pushed, not pulled, just open. She stepped inside. No escort, no announcement, no objection. That and goal with her voice sounds like. "I don't know how long she'll be on the stand. I don't know if Oprah is ready." But the screen in front of me just updated again. The docket doesn't say witness testifying. It says, "Memory rehearsal in progress." And beneath that, "Administrator, you've already processed her." I don't remember that, but the system does. And the playback has already started. Chapter 2. The sketchbook doesn't match her voice. I've drawn murderers, senators, survivors too young to speak. I've sketched entire courtrooms from memory, recreated tears with charcoal, traced grief into the lines of an upper lip. But this morning, this particular trial, I knew I'd be drawing something else entirely. They called it a sensitive appearance, high profile, no video feed, no cameras, just me and my old Ticonderoga pencil pack. I was hired by federal contract, no questions, no press badges. They sat me in what's called Box D, to the left of the judge, diagonal from the witness stand. From there, I had a perfect line of sight to Oprah Winfrey herself. She looked rehearsed, hair perfect, posture centered, eyes a little damp, not with emotion but exhaustion. Her defense team whispered tightly into her left ear. She didn't look back at them. She kept her eyes fixed forward. She didn't glance at the audience, didn't look at the judge. Just the space where the witness would appear. They hadn't told me who the witness was. Then she entered. Barefoot, soft shoes, lavender shirt, a white folder pressed flat against her stomach like a hymnal. She didn't speak, didn't look up, didn't even wait to be called. She simply sat in the chair behind the mic, as if she'd been doing it for years. No name was read aloud. The bailiff glanced at the judge. The judge gave the smallest nod I've ever seen. And then she began to speak. Her voice was soft, not damaged, not scared, measured, like she was reading from the inside of someone else's dream. No legalese, no statements of fact, just descriptions. Phrases that should have meant nothing but curdled the air in the courtroom. They called it the reflection wing, she said. We weren't allowed to speak there, only mirror, only show what they told us to feel. I lifted my pencil, feeling dismay. I meant to sketch Oprah's reaction, but my hand wouldn't move that way. Instead, I drew the courtroom. And no judge, no audience, no student, just pews, silent wood, one spotlight. I blinked, drew again. Another courtroom. Same structure, but this time the witness stand was closed, sealed behind glass. Oprah's chair was there, but her face was a blur, scribbled over with charcoal smears that hadn't come from my hand. I flipped to the next page. My hand moved faster now, something automatic. A sweep here, a press of shadow there. I looked down. Another courtroom. This time I was there too. I was drawing myself, sketching. But the student's voice continued. There was a room beneath the east dormitory, she said. It was kept below freezing. They said it was for clarity. White sheets covered the lights. The floor was always wet. The coldness crept up my spine. I dropped one pencil, switched to ink. The lines bled instantly, like water had been poured across the paper. But I kept going. Sketch, flip, sketch. I tried to stop. My fingers didn't listen. I began to notice something across the gallery. One of the federal handlers, a man in gray, was squinting at the girl like he'd seen her before. Oprah's right hand twitched, once, then again, a tremor in her pinky. The student's head turned. She didn't look at Oprah. She looked at me. Not my face, my hand, like she was watching me draw her silence. He said if we spoke it, we'd forget it. But if we drew it, it would stay. I stopped. My sketchbook flipped again. The page I hadn't drawn, it was me, sitting exactly where I sat now, head tilted, pencil in hand, face blank. Behind me, the courtroom, but the student was gone. And Oprah was frozen, her head tilted backward, her mouth open, her left nostril bleeding. She had collapsed. I looked up in horror. It hadn't happened yet. Oprah was still sitting, her hand now fully clenched around her lapel. But her eyes were locked on something in the gallery. I followed her gaze. There was nothing there. Nothing. A mirrored panel built into the rear wall of the courtroom, normally used to shield private observers. But now, just slightly, just faintly, it shimmered. And in the reflection I saw something no one else reacted to. A second version of the courtroom. One where everyone was sitting slightly wrong. One where I had no face. The student went silent. She opened the white folder. I couldn't see what was inside. Neither could anyone else. She didn't read from it. She just held it open, like a mirror, facing nothing. And then she whispered, "Sketching is how we speak without names." I looked back down. My sketchbook was closed. I hadn't closed it. A new page had appeared beneath the leather cover. It was thicker than the others, almost like cardstock. Embossed in silver ink, it read, "Playback initiated. Visual relay. Box D. Artist role." The air shifted. The bailiff rubbed his eyes. Oprah began to shake more visibly now. Her hands pressed against her knees. Her team whispered rapidly, but she couldn't hear them. Because now she was looking at the student. No, at the Fowler. Her mouth opened, her eyes widened. My sketchbook opened on its own. The next drawing. Oprah, fallen. Blood from her nose. Her body twisted slightly against the back of her chair. Her nameplate cracked. A single shoe fallen beside her foot. I dropped the pencil. "Buddy, I didn't draw that. Not yet." Thumping thudded, there was a sound. A thud. And screaming. Not from the gallery, from her legal team. I looked up. She was down. Exactly as I had drawn her. Exactly. The blood, the chair angle, the shoe, everything. The student was still seated. Door closed again, hands folded. Silent. A deputy lunged for the emergency button. Another rushed to Oprah's side. I tried to stand but couldn't move. My legs had forgotten how to belong to me. The judge shouted. The gallery screamed. A microphone feed popped and died. But the student never looked at Oprah. She was looking at me, at the sketchbook. And for the first time, she spoke directly, not to the courtroom, not to the court recorder, not to memory. To me. "You didn't draw me. I drew you." Chapter 3. We found the feed, but it was blank. The first call came through before the collapse hit the wire. I was 2 sips into my 3rd vending machine coffee when the emergency relay lit up across my dashboard like a coronary. 4 systems red, 1 amber. Internal rotation feet glitching in loops. Camera 4A blinking no source. That was the one aimed directly at the witness box. I work in CourtNet Playback Management, Federal Tier Systems Digital Integrity Division, which sounds like a joke until a senator forgets what he swore under oath or someone's video feed starts misaligning with the transcription. My job is to watch everything that happens in federal courtrooms, live, synced, stored, 100 frames per second, no drift. Which is why I knew something was wrong when footage started appearing in the archive before the event actually happened. At 9:43 AIEM, Oprah Winfrey collapsed mid-trial during a closed testimony session in courtroom C. EMTs entered through the south door at 9:46. My system should have shown the collapse as it happened. Camera feed from 4A, with audio synced across the internal mics embedded in the paneling behind the bench. Instead, the entire courtroom stream was already labeled. Playback, Session 10, Viewer, I didn't name it that. I didn't even know that designation existed in our system schema. Sessions are time-stamped, formatted by judge ID and location code. This was personalized. That shouldn't be possible. It clicked in. No video, just a black screen with a dull flicker like a paused CRT monitor. With burn-in, audio began playing. Static first, then a whispering voice. Low, soft, wrong. Not wrong like glitched, wrong like it knew me. You were in the courtroom. You filed the evidence. You watched it again. Now you remember. I slammed the space bar to kill the playback. Bing didn't stop. Alt-F4. No response. I unplugged the entire console. The screen stayed on, flickering, repeating the same 4 lines just under the threshold of clarity, like a song I'd forgotten from a childhood car ride. I turned to the system log, pulled up the access history. User ID, FST 14982A. A. Authorized. Access time, 7:12 a.m. Label, witness 237 load-in, sketch relay confirmed. But I hadn't clocked in until 8:30. The log showed my key card entering the building at 6:50 a.m., then again at 7:10, then again at 7:35, then again from a different terminal. I flagged it, ran a ghost trace. It bounced me back to a terminal that didn't exist. Station B4A retired 2 years ago. Physically dismantled. The serial number matched nothing in inventory. I tried again. The same ghost terminal popped up again. This time tagged to a deleted employee profile. Clearance, Tier 10. Name, redacted. Assigned division, playback vault, non-adjudicated objects. I didn't even know that division existed. I should have known better than to try to copy anything, but instincts kicked in. I yanked a backup drive from the secure shelf, slid it into the console port. The drive flashed green once, then went dark. When it reappeared in my system, its name had changed. Sketchbook transfer, witness 237. Hadn't named it that. I didn't even select a directory. Inside was a single JPG file. I opened it. Not the student, not the courtroom. It was the sketch artist. Drying. Her hands blurred into black smears, fast, frantic. Around her, a courtroom with no witness, no Oprah, no judge, just her. And me. I was in the drawing, in the gallery, watching her. But the moment I blinked, something changed. The perspective shifted, and I wasn't watching her anymore. She was watching me. I pressed print. I needed a hard copy, something to verify, something real. The photo came out slower than normal. The printer hissed, more like an exhale than a mechanical hum. When the paper finally emerged, I grabbed it. Too hard, I think. My hands were slick with sweat. But the image, it had changed again. The sketch artist was gone. So was the student. Now it was just the courtroom. Empty, seat after seat. Except one figure. Dead center. Standing. Alone. Staring back at the camera. Wearing exactly what I had on. Holding a piece of paper. This piece of paper. I checked the timestamp. The image was generated at 12:30 p.m. It was only 11:48. I turned. The security mirror behind my console caught my reflection. Is already holding the paper. Exactly as drawn. Same pose. In distance. Same blank expression. A cursor began blinking in the upper right corner of my secondary monitor. I didn't open anything. It opened itself. The text field populated automatically. Section 10, Archive confirmed. Observer ID 14,982A. Playback validated. You watch the sketchbook. Now the sketchbook watches you. I stood up. I don't know why. The hallway outside was silent. Too silent. No rush of emergency responders. No chatter from the courtroom feed team. Just lights that hummed out of sync. I grabbed the printed photo, slipped the USB into my coat pocket, turned toward the exit, and froze. The security camera by the door, model V99. Its little red light blinked twice and turned off, then blinked again, but the feed wasn't red. It was black, recording nothing, recording me. Still, exactly as the photo showed. Chapter 4. The vault didn't lock in time. Its protocol. After any Tier 10 disturbance, all evidence, digital or physical, is sealed within 2 hours. No exceptions, no delays. The courtroom may scream, collapse, or vanish into panic, but downstairs, we work in silence. I've been the federal evidence clerk in Sublevel Archive 7 for 11 years. Nothing has ever failed to lock. until today. The folder arrived first. White, stiff, no label. Only the faint golden crest of the Winfrey Academy embedded into the front, identical to the embossed uniform badge the student wore. There was no chain of custody tag attached, no signature, just a green post-it, session 10/vault 3/clerk ID 442B, my ID. But I hadn't logged any such receipt. I double-checked the time code. The note was printed at 4:26 a.m. today. My login history says I wasn't even in the building until 7:11. Still, the folder hummed in my hand. Yes, hummed, like a low frequency had been stitched into the cardstock. When I passed it under the scanner, the LED strip on the reader flickered, not red, not green, but white, flashing 3 times. Our system doesn't even register white as a state. A few minutes later, a secondary courier arrived with 2 more items. 1. A spiral-bound sketchbook, stained along the bottom edge, its spine slightly melted, like it had been too close to heat or light. The courier didn't speak, didn't sign the manifest, simply slid it across the security desk and walked out through the East Freight corridor to a VHS cassette, pure white plastic, no label on the front, but stamped into the underside, etched directly into the casing, was a phrase: rehearsal memory. Rethwang for eyes that were there. I had never seen handwriting embedded directly into polymer before. It wasn't painted, it wasn't pressed, it felt grown. I followed lockdown instructions, packaged each object individually, sealed in separate archival sleeves, tagged each with level 10 quarantine bands. Then I proceeded down to Vault 3. Vault 3 is one of 6 deeper holding units beneath Sublevel Archive 7. It hasn't been used in months. Some say it was originally designed to store cold evidence, biological samples, sketchbooks, sealed film. Others say it was part of a deeper facility meant for objects deemed non-adjudicatable. Whatever the truth is, the vault has always been loyal. You place the evidence in, the biometric sensor confirms your ID, the locking mechanism whirs, status sealed. Not today. I slid in the folder, then the sketchbook, then the tape. The pressure hiss activated. The terminal blinked its usual waiting code, then stopped. A single message appeared. Sealing failed. Rehearsal required before closure. I blinked, hit SC. No response. The system cursor began typing again. You were in the courtroom. Playback initiated. Viewer designation, Clerk 442B. I froze. Every protocol warned against unsealing media once entered into Vault classification. Tier 10 evidence is considered viewable only by courtroom designation, and only with 2 federal supervisors present. But the Vault was holding itself open, refusing closure. That had never happened before. My hand moved toward the tape. Not because I wanted to, because the room slowed. I inserted it into the archival VHS unit, embedded in the back of the Vault interface. The screen above it flickered to life. No static. Gift footage. Grainy. Bleached colors. A courtroom C, but not as it looked today. The pews were clean, brighter, less worn. A younger judge, no microphones. And there, at the witness stand, stood the girl. Not the one from earlier, not quite. This version of her stood straighter, her uniform pristine, her hands flat on the desk. She was reading lines, rehearsed, robotic. Lee said we had to draw what we saw so we would not speak it. Drawing does not rot the way memory does. That's what they told us. That's what I forgot, until now. Her eyes never moved. But in the background, 3 rows behind, sat Oprah, watching, alone. No legal team, no makeup, her hands clutched around a cloth tissue, eyes sunken. As the girl spoke, Oprah began to weep, silently. No sobs, just tears sliding in steady rhythm. But then the camera panned, and in the far corner of the courtroom, I saw myself standing beside the sealed vault. Now, I was in the recording, not in the courtroom, in the vault, as I was in this exact moment. Same coat, same gloves, same posture holding the sketchbook. I tried to eject the tape. The button jammed. The playback continued. On screen, Oprah leaned forward. The student said a final line. "You were meant to remember me, but you sealed me instead." And then everything in the room on screen began to shake. Not violently, just shift. The wooden benches turned to shadow. The microphones warped into mirrors, and every reflection, mine, Oprah's, the students, stared at the camera. I looked back at the real vault. The terminal behind me lit up. On the wall mount screen above the evidence slots, 3 sketches had appeared. They were not there before. Each was taped gently to the backlit panel. One of me sealing the tape. One of the student, folder open, looking directly forward. One of the sketch artist from upstairs. But her drawing wasn't of the courtroom. It was of this ball, of me looking at it. The final sketch had no signature, but scrawled in the bottom corner were 5 words. The vault didn't lock in time. The terminal cursor began blinking again. I watched, powerless, as it typed. She was the testimony. You are the playback. The screen went dark, and then the vault door began to close on its own. There was no hiss, no confirmation chime. It's just a low click, like something folding itself shut from the inside. I backed away. The timestamp on the terminal screen read, Session 10, Memory sealed but never locked. Chapter 5. She drew the courtroom before the trial began. They said it was a routine intake, a standard psychological prep session done the night before testimony. Private room, 1 chair, 1 recorder, 1 federal psychologist. No names were used, not for her, not for what she'd seen. The girl didn't speak when she entered. She didn't sit. She placed a sketchbook on the table between them, slid it forward, and waited. The psychologist smiled politely, tried to coax her, asked about the trial, asked how she was feeling. But the girl stayed silent, eyes glassed with the kind of stillness that doesn't blink, it watches. Then she opened the sketchbook. The drawings weren't rough, they weren't childlike, they were exact, 1 page after another. Courtroom pews, nameplates, the curve of the judge's glasses, the federal seal stamped into the wood grain of the witness box. And then, Oprah, drawn mid-cock, her face twisted, one eye open, a smear of blood trailing from the corner of her nose down to the edge of her pearl blouse, the courtroom frozen around her. Every spectator turned toward her, every mouth mid-gasp. Every detail matched the collapse that hadn't happened yet. The psychologist leaned forward, voice shaking now. How did you know she'd fall? The girl's answer came softly, almost sweetly. Because it happened last time, and the time before, and the time before that. The room went quiet. She flipped to the next page. A figure in the audience, seated 3 rows back, chin resting on her fist, eyes wide, watching the sketchbook being opened. It was the psychologist. Her exact face, her exact clothes, the crooked lapel pin she always forgot to straighten. Even the little tear in her left sleeve, the one she got that morning on the edge of her desk. It wasn't possible. The girl wasn't guessing. She was remembering. She kept drawing, described a room no one had mentioned, a space beneath the academy. They called it the Crown Room, not underground. Beneath the light, she said. A space with no mirrors and too much sound. She said it smelled like bleach and lemon rinds. She said it was always just a little too cold. And then she smiled. "You don't remember it," she said, "but you were there too, the first time." The psychologist tried to stop the session. She stood up, reached for the sketchbook, but it was already closed. The girl had turned to the last page, and there it was, a drawing of the psychologist's computer. The waveform of the session, the window of the audio file, the little blinking dot that marked playback. At the top of the screen, file pre-testimony, intake, student 237. Status, listening. But the room had no computer, no screen, no playback device. The psychologist looked up, confused, angry, terrified. But the girl was already gone. No door opened. No one had entered. And on the floor beside the chair was a pencil, still warm in the hand, still wet at the tip, still drying, even though the sketchbook was closed. Chapter 6. Oprah's collapse repeats. They told me it was a routine collapse, brought me in because I was already stationed 2 minutes away. That's what we train for. Courtroom stress events, low blood sugar, panic attacks under pressure. Famous people fall like anyone else. But when I got there, something was wrong. She wasn't unconscious. She wasn't convulsing. She was still, dead still. No response to light, no eyelid twitch, no breath, and no pulse. He checked twice, did a third time. Flatline. 37 seconds. No medical cause, no trauma, no arrest. Her pupils were dilated, but not uneven. Her skin temperature was normal. If I hadn't seen the vitals myself, I would have thought she was meditating. Except she was whispering, mouth barely moving. Same phrase, 3 times. She was the sketch. I was the playback. I asked the courtroom officers if they'd heard it. They hadn't. I asked if she'd been prepped with any medications. Nothing, just water, 1 folder, a routine appearance. They tried to take her vitals again. By then she was breathing, quietly, softly, like nothing had happened. But she wouldn't open her eyes. She just kept saying it. She was the sketch. I was the playback. I requested access to the security footage. I wanted to confirm the timeline, watch it from the gallery feed. Needed to understand the fall, the warning signs. I've done this before. You look at the footage and you get peace of mind. Not this time. The first feed showed exactly what I remembered. Oprah mid-sentence, her eyes shifting, her fingers twitching like she was hearing something no one else could. Then, the fall. I saw myself rush in, bag open, hands on her neck. I watched it play out in real time. But then, it happened again. I didn't hit replay, no one touched anything, but the feed looped. Same moment, same expression, same collapse. This time, I arrived 2 seconds earlier, and she didn't whisper. Then it played again. Slight variation. In this one, there was no student in the witness box. Then again, and this time, the courtroom was empty. No judge, no jury, no gallery. Just Oprah and me. And then again. But this time, I was the one collapsing. I stood staring at myself on the screen, watching my own body hit the floor next to hers, eyes wide, mouth frozen mid-breath. I tried to stop the playback. Console didn't respond. I yanked the power strip. The screen stayed on. No signal, just a still frame of me, frozen, kneeling, exactly like I had in real life, except wasn't breathing. I told my supervisor I needed rest. He agreed, said I looked pale, maybe a bug, maybe a delayed adrenaline crash, told me to take the afternoon off. So I went home, sat in the shower for a long time, didn't even turn the water on. I just sat, fully dressed. I peeled off my jacket an hour later and found something tucked inside the inner lining. A piece of sketch paper, a drawing of me, kneeling beside Oprah. Same angle, same posture, same gloves, my name tag perfectly detailed down to the chipped corner. Only difference? In the drawing, Oprah was sitting up, looking down at me, smiling, and written in the corner of the page, Final Playback Session 10. I don't know how it got there. I don't know who drew it, but I checked the timestamp in the corner. Drawn yesterday. Before the trial. Before the collapse. Before I was even assigned. And beneath the timestamp, barely visible in the shadow of the sketch lines, you entered a saver, but you were part of the file. She was the sketch. You were the playback. Chapter 7. The playback vault is already full. The instructions were clear. All materials related to the Winfrey testimony, physical, digital, analog, were to be stored under non-adjudicated memory objects, Tier 10M. I'd handled dozens of classified evidence transfers over the years. Most were uneventful. Dead hard drives, tapes labeled unusable. Once, a sketchbook from a sealed child abuse case with every face blacked out by the victim. I don't forget that one. I don't forget many. But this was different before I even stepped into Vault 6. For starters, I didn't request access. The assignment just appeared. Flagged urgent. My name already signed on the work order. I triple-checked the metadata. Logged from my terminal. 3:43 AYEM. I wasn't even in the building. Security at Playback Vault 6 is biometric. Retinal then pulse confirmation. You walk in alone. No wireless devices. No assistance. The vault door opened before I even touched it. Inside, the air was colder than usual. Not in temperature, in pressure. Like memory had weight and the room was struggling to hold it. The shelves were full. Tapes stacked corner to corner. VHS, mini DV, USBs, reel-to-reel film. Paper folders with red seals and silver stitching. All of it labeled with the same thing. Section 10. That's not possible. We don't archive under testimony sessions. We archive by case number, year, or evidence tag. But here, every label was the same, only the sub-labels varied. I read them aloud, one by one. Sketch Artist Visual Relay Box D. Administrator, Hallway Entry Log Reversal. Technician, Feed Residue, Playback 4A, EMT Collapse Variant 2.1. My heart started to pound. Each name matched a report I'd filed earlier this week. Each one was one of ours. People in the building. People we've already sent home. I scanned the shelves again. My eyes landed on the final section. It wasn't sealed yet. One box sat alone. Slightly newer. No dust. Label Session 11U. Inside nothing. Just black foam. An empty USB slot. A slot for a folder. One for a VHS. The placeholders were exact. Like the box already knew what would be inside. Like it was waiting for me to fill it in. I turned to the terminal. Logged in. The screen didn't show a menu. It showed a blinking cursor. Then a message typed itself. She was the sketch. You were the playback. How you draw her. I stepped back. The cursor blinked once, then again. My inbox pinged. No sender. Just a subject line. Session 10, final observation. I opened it. There was one image. The courtroom. Pews full. The student mid-speech. Oprah falling. A blur at the witness box. And in the far back corner, facing forward. Same glasses, same tie, same scar on my cheek. My hand resting on the edge of the gallery rail, watching. But I was never there. I wasn't in the courtroom. I wasn't assigned. I wasn't anywhere near the event. And yet, There I was, watching the playback, just like now. The terminal screens across the vault blinked to life all at once. Screensaver patterns gone. No file trees. Just one line. Session 11. Playback begins. Now. The vault door hiss. But it didn't close. It opened wider, and in the reflection of the monitor, I saw a sketchbook on my desk. One I didn't bring in. And it was already open. To a page of me. Standing here, reading this line. Chapter 8. She wasn't the testimony. She was the loop. They called her in after hours. No badge, no federal uniform. Just a black custodial smock, a clipboard with the wrong date, and a soft knock on the courthouse's loading dock. She wasn't told the case, just that it was sealed. Discretion required. The courtroom hadn't been touched in months. It still smelled like something had just ended. When she opened the doors to courtroom C, the lights didn't work. The air was thick, not dusty, not stale, but suspended, as if time hadn't been allowed to leave yet. The pews were empty, the cushions undisturbed. But something else was there. On the floor near the witness box, a sketchbook. It hadn't been cataloged, no red tag, no evidence tape, just lying there, waiting. She picked it up. The first few pages were smudged. Hands, faces, drawings of people in the room, captured mid-expression. The administrator, the EMT, the sketch artist, Oprah. Falling, again and again. Dozens of pages of it, each one slightly different. The tilt of her head, the shape of her hands. The people around her either frozen or already gone. And then something changed. The drawings weren't of the collapse anymore. They were of the people watching it. One by one, a cascade of observers, sitting in different corners, back rows, gallery seats, press boxes, courthouse monitors. Each one collapsed in sequence. First the sketch artist, her hands bent backward. Then the technician, slumped against his console. Then the administrator, pen cracked in her fist. Then the EMT, mouth open, mid-scream, eyes rolled toward the ceiling. And then she turned the page and saw her own gloves, her janitor's badge, her zippered vest, drawn in detail, drawn from the back, drawn watching the sketchbook. The drawing was dated. She froze. The courtroom remained silent, but inside the back cover of the sketchbook, something clicked. A USB. It wasn't taped in, it was embedded, as if the book had grown around it. She removed it with shaking fingers, walked to the side desk. There was a dusty laptop still plugged in, part of the courtroom's old transcription system. She booted it. The screen flickered once, and again, then opened a video file automatically. No file name, no prompt. The student's voice filled the room. Soft, breathless. You filed the playback. You testified when you watched. You collapse when you remember. The custodian dropped to her knees. Not from pain, from memory. Something started leaking through her rib cage. Not liquid. Not sound. Something she'd forgotten. The first time she cleaned this courtroom, the woman who handed her a folder she never opened. The VHS tape that felt cold even in her bag. The sound of someone saying, "Don't face the mirrors, they store everything." She looked up, and the courtroom camera activated. Not the one aimed at the stand, the one facing the gallery. It blinked once, then locked on her. Red dot. Recording. The laptop screen didn't show the student anymore. It showed her. On loop. Watching the playback. And on the sketchbook's final page, a drawing of the courtroom. A mirror hanging where the flag used to be. And in the mirror, a reflection. You. Not the custodian, not the artist, not the administrator, not the EMT. You, reading this, the reflection is smiling, but you're not. And beneath the drawing, barely legible in the soft graphite of a child's hand, she wasn't the testimony, she was the rehearsal. And now, you're the next witness.